Imagine a motorcade that can move across the planet, with no one really understanding where it is at any given moment. Right now, somewhere in the world, the president is sleeping peacefully in his residence, while his main limousine has been waiting for him thousands of kilometers away for quite some time, in a scorching hot hangar on a military base in Qatar. This is not a mock-up, not a training vehicle, and not a spare. That very armored limousine, weighing about 9 tons, which will carry the president in 3 days, has been standing there for several days now, like a top-secret exhibit in a private security museum. And the most interesting part, if a single foreign intelligence agent ever figures out how this entire logistics operation works, decades of American developments in protecting the country's first person can be thrown in the trash. We are used to thinking that moving a car to another country is, at most, calling a transport company. But when it comes to the presidential beast, it's not just moving a car. It is relocating a mobile fortress packed with secret electronics and armored like a mini-tank, costing nearly $1.5 million per unit, and that's just the hardware, without the price of the technology. Luxury life. On the outside, the Beast looks like a slightly elongated Cadillac luxury sedan, but beneath this business meeting on wheels lies a level of paranoia that regular car manufacturers can't even begin to approach. The body is covered with multi-layer armor up to 20 centimeters thick. Official figures are classified, but it is known to withstand a hit from a grenade launcher and an explosion under the chassis. The glass is up to 12 to 13 centimeters thick, bulletproof, multi-layered with protection from shrapnel. The doors weigh about as much as a passenger plane door. Slamming one shut literally means closing a mini bunker behind you. Inside is a sealed capsule. If chemical weapons are dispersed outside, the filtration and isolation system turns the vehicle into a safe cocoon. At the same time, the Beast remains connected to the Pentagon and communication centers. Even at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour, a closed-door meeting at the level of a military headquarters can be held inside. Every intelligence service in the world would gladly pay millions just to calmly measure this limousine's armor with a tape measure and scan its electronics. That is precisely why the main question is, how do you transport such cars to another country so that no one has time to inspect them? All the magic begins not in Qatar, but on an ordinary, seemingly evening at Andrews Air Force Base. A massive C-17 military transport aircraft stands on the concrete runway. It's a flying warehouse that can swallow a tank, but even for it, the presidential limousine is an unpleasant, complex puzzle. Imagine, you need to park a 9-ton armored safe inside an aircraft so that the aircraft's center of gravity doesn't shift by a single centimeter. The vehicle is positioned exactly at a calculated point, and all of this must also withstand possible turbulence and sharp maneuvers. 3 loading specialists spend almost an hour moving a single limousine. Laser pointers, floor markers, calculations down to the centimeter. Every axle is calculated as if it were a rocket launch, because if you make a mistake with the balance, an ordinary flight at an altitude of 10 kilometers can easily turn into a pilot's nightmare and a black headline in the news. Then the Beast is secured with chains and fasteners designed for loads as if the plane decided to do a barrel roll. No one plans to test this in practice, but the system must withstand even that scenario. And by the way, they load more than just one limousine onto the plane. A whole mini city on wheels, a full motorcade, is assembled inside. When the C-17 takes to the sky, it is formally just a flight with diplomatic cargo. In documents, it sounds dry and safe, but in fact, a mobile US fortress is flying inside. During the 14-hour flight, the plane changes its call sign several times. It's as if you checked into a hotel under one name, 2 hours later, you were already registered under another in the same hotel, and by morning, under a third. Only here, the hotel is all airspace, and the administrator is military dispatchers and closed flight management systems. The route does not follow the same corridors used by regular passenger flights. For such aircraft, there are their own military routes, invisible to civilian radars, not displayed on ordinary flight trackers. From the ground, it looks as if a huge plane simply disappears from the world of civil aviation and flies somewhere between the lines. And now let's look inside this airborne garage. Several Beast limousines, outwardly identical, communication vehicles that can jam everything around with within hundreds of meters. Medical vehicles with a blood supply of exactly the same type as the president's. Technical vehicles capable of turning any parking lot near a shopping center into a mini hospital in a couple of minutes. The pilots flying this aircraft have clearance levels similar to those who work with nuclear weapons. The Pentagon's logic is simple. If you are trusted to transport nuclear munitions, you can be trusted with the presidential garage. And all this time, one question carries more weight than the cost of all these vehicles: how to land so that no unnecessary person sees anything. The most interesting moment begins towards the end of the flight. The plane approaches the Middle East and lines up for landing to coincide with satellite dead windows, unfavorable weather for observation, and minimal local activity. The landing is deep at night. No fuss, no glowing vests of regular airport workers. On the concrete near a pre-agreed section of the runway, only people who were brought here and vetted in advance are standing. The C-17 taxis to a part of the base that is not on any public map. When the cargo ramp opens, a motorcade that in any other country would instantly draw a crowd of onlookers drives out into the night air, still hot even before dawn. But here, everything is the opposite. Local posts turn away, regular personnel are not allowed into the area. All who see the column are either also military or diplomats who have many questions but zero right to ask them. The destination is an ordinary concrete warehouse that just a couple of days ago was no different from dozens of others. But thanks to a chain of diplomatic agreements and the paper magic of the State Department, this rectangle of concrete has legally been turned into a piece of the USA. Simply put, behind its door is almost the same legal status as on the White House lawn. Inside the warehouse, everything has already been refitted. Air conditioners maintain a stable 14 degrees. This is not for people's comfort. It's comfort for rubber seals, cables, and sealing systems. If the temperature rises too high, the seals will age faster, and that's a risk for protection against chemical attacks. Powerful dehumidifiers pump moisture out of the air around the clock. Ordinary condensation is an enemy to secret electronics, no less than a bullet. Even the lighting is designed so that no pockets of shadow remain where a tiny microphone or a button-sized beacon could be hidden. 3 absolutely identical beasts are placed in different configurations, which are changed every 12 hours. The parking scheme, distances between vehicles, angles, all of this is considered state secrets. If you could somehow miraculously take a top-down photo through the warehouse roof, you would simply see 3 identical limousines, and not a single clue as to which one will carry the president. A day before the limousines arrive in the country, another batch flies in, on a different plane, under a different pretext. These are Marines and technical teams officially listed as embassy support. In reality, they deploy a 2-mile security perimeter around the warehouse. In their arsenal, drone detection systems, sensors reacting to directional microphones and long focus optics, equipment that smells an attempt to eavesdrop or spy even before a person manages to take out a camera. And all this for several vehicles whose total cost easily exceeds tens of millions of dollars, not counting what's built inside. For 72 hours, these people practically live in this warehouse, sleeping on cots next to the vehicles, eating MREs, working in shifts. They are guarding not just a fleet of cars, but a symbol of the country's power that cannot be allowed to be studied by anyone but their own. Parallel to them, Secret Service agents walk through the warehouse. Every 4 hours, they conduct a mini inventory, inspecting vehicle underbodies with mirrors, scanning the premises for new radio signals, checking if any extra antenna or suspicious metal gleam has appeared, testing communication and jamming systems. If you thought double-checking a child before bed is paranoia, here the level of care is increased 1,000-fold. The funniest part is how small details can become intelligence. At some point, the Americans learned that foreign intelligence services were analyzing photographs of the presidential limousine's wheels. The idea was simple. The car the president is actually in is slightly heavier. Even a few hundred kilograms of load give a microscopic difference in tire deflection. Modern algorithms using high-resolution images can distinguish the same type of tire by how sagged they are. The solution? The Secret Service started weighing the limousines. All 3 beasts must be within literally a couple of kilograms in mass. Even spare items inside are distributed so that the total weight matches. Now, any drone or satellite photo will show 3 silhouettes absolutely identical in load. Not a single tire will give away where the main passenger is sitting. And that's just one example. Every time someone in the world finds a new way to figure out which car the president is in, a new instruction, a new regulation, a new level of paranoia appears in the USA. Finally, the day of the visit arrives. The president boards his plane, and somewhere away from the cameras, deep inside the base, the most expensive garage wakes up. All 3 limousines leave the warehouse not simultaneously and not in one column. They depart at different times, via different routes, mingle with support vehicles, and only closer to the key point assemble into the picture familiar to viewers, a large presidential motorcade. On the airport runway, everything turns into an automotive ballet. Specially trained drivers who practiced on an exact copy of the route back home perform a whole spectacle. Cars change places, reposition, block lines of sight. When the president descends the aircraft stairs, even the drivers themselves don't know which car he will ultimately be told to get into. The decision comes via a secure communication channel literally at the last moment, based on what analysts and agents see around. Cameras, rooftops, overpasses, suspicious objects, potential risks. Everything is accounted for in seconds. The president gets into one of the 3 cars. The other 2 do not travel empty. Inside are also agents playing the role of the main car just as convincingly as the real one. As soon as the motorcade drives into the city, the real magic begins. The 3 limousines constantly change places. The car that was in front falls back, the middle one moves right or left, the rear one surges forward. The intervals, patterns, and trajectories of lane changes are calculated by cryptographers, the same mathematicians who deal with code breaking and encryption protection in intelligence. They have literally turned the vehicle's movements into an encrypted algorithm. From the outside, there is a pattern, but predicting where the target object will be the next moment is practically impossible. Even if someone filmed all this from a helicopter and then reviewed the footage frame by frame, it would be extremely difficult to understand which car the president was in at any given moment. And that's just the visual part of the show. Today, threats come not only from rooftops and roadsides, they fly through the air in the form of radio signals and digital packets. Each presidential vehicle has its own set of radio equipment, but so that no one can understand where the president is by its digital footprint, all 3 limousines emit an identical electronic signature. Externally, each produces the same noise, the same level of encrypted communication, similar electromagnetic interference, the same thermal signature. Anyone trying to track the motorcade by electronic signatures will see 3 identical sources, as if you were looking for one Wi-Fi router and 2 clones with the same name and power appeared nearby. A separate story is the communication vehicles. They create a bubble around the motorcade inside which a bomb cannot be detonated remotely by signal. Drones lose GPS and crash. Mobile phones connect not to local towers but to equipment that is very good at listening and analyzing. If someone tries to coordinate an attack by phone at that moment, there's a high chance their conversation will end not on the line with an accomplice, but in an intelligence report. Even modern cars with wireless keys in this bubble sometimes simply fail to start. Beyond the visible picture, there is always a plan B and a plan C. Somewhere at a safe distance from the route, in another part of the city, stands a 4th limousine. It is no different from the 3 main ones and is ready to roll out at any moment if something goes wrong, from a technical breakdown to a serious threat. In the technical vehicles that don't get into camera shots, they carry not only tools and mechanics, there lie spare tires, identical in weight and characteristics to the main ones, even spare doors. The reason is surprisingly simple and frightening. Once, specialists discovered that with certain types of damage, an armored limousine door could jam so that opening it would be extremely difficult, meaning the president could end up in a perfectly protected trap. Therefore, now, in theory, a spare door can be delivered and changed faster than news channels could find out about it. Even the route from the airport to the palace, from the hotel to the summit, is not a route, but an entire system. 3 different paths to each destination are prepared in advance: the primary, the backup, and another one that might seem strange or illogical, but is useful precisely because of that. Local police and military block off all 3 directions. Helicopters are launched into the air, monitoring every possible road option. Which specific route will ultimately be chosen is decided during the movement, reacting to the situation, traffic jams, suspicious vehicles, analysts' messages. From the outside, it looks like a confident motorcade that knows where it's going, but inside the system, dozens of options are recalculated in real time. If a road is blocked here, if there's a traffic jam there, if an unexpected group of people appears on a corner, every few seconds the decision tree is updated, and the motorcade continues to drive as if everything had been going according to plan from the start. The most amazing thing: all of this doesn't end the moment the president flies away. On the contrary, for those responsible for the vehicles, the most frightening moment begins precisely when Air Force One lifts off into the sky. From that second, the technical teams have about 18 hours to completely check every vehicle, ensure no one installed, attached, or tampered with the firmware of anything, and extract this entire garage back out of the country. The limousines are examined down to the last screw, scanned for bugs, electronics checked for any changes in software, navigation and communication systems tested anew. Even GPS modules are periodically replaced because there have been cases where malicious actors tried to leave tiny timing errors in the system, invisible breadcrumbs that could be used to track the vehicle later. And then begins the part that would make any spy movie screenwriter shiver. Each vehicle is treated with special compounds that destroy biological traces: DNA, fingerprints, fragments of skin, and hair. Not because they fear the local police. The problem is different. Some foreign intelligence services have tried to build DNA databases on Secret Service and military personnel to later identify these individuals when meeting them in other countries or on other operations. Essentially, the vehicles don't just drive out. They leave erasing almost all possible traces behind them. The actual extraction looks completely different from the insertion. If they arrived at night, they might depart during the day. If they entered from one direction, they'll depart via another route. Teams, call signs, timing, everything is changed. The logic is simple. If someone was closely observing the arrival and hopes to see the same thing upon departure, they should be disappointed. One C-17 carries the vehicles back home. Another at the same time might already be carrying a new motorcade to the next point on the planet, where in a couple of days, another presidential visit will create the illusion that all of this happens by itself. In the end, we get a system that looks like a perfectly ordinary motorcade of black cars driving down the road. But behind this ordinary lies a multi-million-dollar fleet of unique equipment, paranoia refined to mathematical precision, and hundreds of people who live by schedules, tables, and protocols so that one person can calmly step off a plane, get into a car, and reach the desired door. This is, perhaps, the most expensive logistical chain in the world, where every bolt has a price and every minute has an action scenario. And the next time you see a leisurely motorcade on TV, think about this. While the cameras show you just one black car, somewhere very nearby an entire army is working to ensure you never find out which one exactly carries the person for whom all of this is arranged. What do you think about this? And be sure to write your opinion in the comments. And see you in the next episode on the channel for The Wealthiest. Here, it's about wealth, luxury, and the lives of the most influential people on the planet. Thank you for watching.